My oh my, these seasons are flying by.
Flying by is right.
Yeah.
Lots of turkey going on. That's for sure. Lots of hauling food to grandma's house. Lots of leftovers. So
Yeah.
having some conversations. Let's start with the turkey in the room.
Yep. First and foremost, you're probably going to be getting a frozen turkey. If you're getting a frozen turkey, you have to be so confident that you're getting that thing thawed properly, right? Right now, the guideline is 4 to 5 pounds, 24 hours. So for every 4 or 5 pounds, you add an additional 25 or 24 hours. So
Right.
if you got an 8-pound turkey, you're looking at about 2 days, 48 hours.
A lot of people with big families buy those 20-pound turkeys.
A behemoth.
Getting that baby completely defrosted is going to make a big difference in your cooking time, in your smoking time, all of those. Lots of people like me, where there's only 2 in the house, we buy the turkey breast.
Right.
And we can defrost that in the microwave. But here's the deal with the microwave. Anytime you defrost in a microwave, you need to then completely cook it, not put it back in the refrigerator. So, if you've got a defrost cycle on your microwave, that's great.
Absolutely.
But then don't put it back in the refrigerator. And when you think about all the hot spots that are in things that you put in the microwave, you can understand why it's a problem.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to defrost it, put it in the oven,
Yeah,
put it in the
bacteria loves a
fryer,
nice
whatever.
warm spot, doesn't it?
Right. And making sure it's completely defrosted is really important. Deep frying turkeys.
Yep. Yeah, I always thaw my turkey in the refrigerator. I try and give it enough time, normally about 4 or 5 days, to be certain that it's thawed. But if I've got somebody that I'm catering for that wants their turkey fried, I have to be so certain, because if that thing goes into that fry oil and still has a frozen spot, it is going to bubble and burn, and we're looking at a grease fire. And that could be absolutely terrifying or devastating.
Right.
People lose their homes to that.
Right. So
you have to be
with a
very
grease
cautious.
fire, one of the things you really want to have in your kitchen all the time is one of these handy dandy things. Hey, watch
Yeah.
out the counter there.
Seriously. Woo,
And
sorry, she's
it
heavy.
really is. But it's also, just having one isn't all you need to do. You also need to make sure it's actually charged properly.
You do. Yeah, you have to inspect them once a year.
Yep. Take them over to your
Yep.
fire station,
Yep.
have them do that, and get that rocking and rolling.
And if you need one replaced,
Yeah.
they'll replace it. You can
Yep.
get a new one. It's always important to have at least one in the kitchen, one out by your grill. For every cook surface, I always think you should have one. And everybody in the household should know how to use it, including the children.
Yeah.
Because if you have a grease fire, the last thing you want to do is add water.
Right.
Because it's going to make it just that much bigger, and you can't put it out. It's going to
Yeah.
spread it out, and it's just going to get more chaotic. The good thing about something like a fire extinguisher is it's going to suppress it. It's going to suffocate out that flame at the core, and it'll put it out. Alternatives to that would be to use something that can suffocate it, whether it be a rag, a tablecloth, an old shirt,
baking
anything
soda,
you can get a hold of.
all
Baking
of those
soda.
kinds of things for grease fires.
But be certain you don't use something like flour or sugar, because of the particulates. That can just make it even worse.
Yeah, so there really is rules when you're dealing with
Big
that
rules.
kind of thing.
I would think again about boil or frying a turkey. I think there are so
yeah.
many better options, like smoking, right?
Smoking. Lots of people are smoking theirs.
Yeah.
So lots of people are brining turkey, and that's usually just in some kind of sugar water or salt sugar water, that kind of thing. Make sure with your brines that you're not reusing them. If you're brining beef and you're marinating beef in some kind of barbecue sauce or something like that, don't reuse that.
Yeah.
The only time that's safe to be reused is if you brought it up to a full boil to
Yeah.
kill off those pathogens.
Technically, you
Yeah.
could use it for a gravy or something like that.
If you brought it up to a full boil.
But if you're making a good brine, you're not going to want to use it for
Right.
that anyway. It's nice and
Brines you wouldn't,
salty,
right.
delightful.
But it is a big factor when you're smoking turkey.
Absolutely.
You need it completely defrosted, because that's going to make a big difference in, does it actually temp out for you? And you want your smokers to have a thermometer of their own, plus you want to stick a thermometer into the turkey itself.
Yep. And it has to reach
yeah.
165.
Yep.
Absolute must for all poultry.
Temperature of your smoke box does not mean anything about an internal temperature, that's for sure.
When if you're doing what do they call them? A turducken? Where it's
Turducken.
Turkeys and chickens and all the things.
That's a Midwest thing, and it really is fun to do. But
Have you done it?
again, We tried it one year.
Was
yeah.
it good?
It was a pain.
Oh, it sounds
But
wild.
it's so cool because families are all so excited about what it is.
Yeah.
But it really is, how do you do it and how are you dealing with that food? And then the food safety in the kitchen itself, right? So you got that turkey that you're parting out and all of that raw. You want to make sure that your space is cleaned and sanitized.
Well, it's got to be cooked
yeah.
all the way through, too.
Yeah.
165 for the smallest one in the middle, and the next one,
Right.
and the next one.
But it also is a big problem with things like turkey or big pieces of meat and stuff like that, is to get them cooled down properly.
Absolutely.
You want to be able to use those leftovers, but you really want to get your food in the refrigerator within 2 hours.
Yep.
So that's a big deal. If you've still got a big roast or a big turkey, part it out so it will cool down. Put it in a container. Most of the time, people put things that are hot in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And your refrigerator is there to keep it cool.
Not to get
Right.
cold. Yeah.
And that takes us to the crock pot issue.
I was just thinking about that when you were talking about it. These things are made to hold heat and to hold a lot of it. They're so heavy and they're insulated. I don't know if they're clay or cast or what they are, but this is not something you can store your food in because it does hold all of that heat. As soon as you put it in the fridge, it's going to be hot and it's going to hold that heat for hours. So your food's likely not going to get cold in the middle. Best thing you can do is get it out of this container and into smaller containers. If it's something that's already cold, you can even put it into Ziploc bags.
Yeah, and Ziploc bags are really great. Put a little ice water in your sink, put the food in the Ziploc bag, drop it in that ice water, and it cools it down very, very quickly. Obviously, making sure those Ziplocs are really sealed.
Absolutely.
Or a lot of places will sort of clothespin it so that it stays taut. We love to use crock pots because they're so easy to use.
Yeah.
And if you're going to prep something and keep it cold, you can put it in the refrigerator. And then if you're going to take it to grandma's house,
Right.
heat it at grandma's house.
Yeah.
Don't heat it at home and then take it there because you're running into some temperature issues.
Right.
Did you cool it? Did you reheat it? I mean, it's a whole thing that can really happen with those microbes that can grow in there.
Well, and when reheating, it's got to reach 165 as well,
Yep.
just like poultry. Whether it is poultry or not, that temperature has to reach 165 to kill this.
Right. To kill any
bacteria.
pathogens that
Yeah.
you might be dealing with. So it really is a good, these are lovely to use, but let's
Yep.
make sure we're using them properly. You put hot food in a hot crock pot in your refrigerator, you are
It's gonna
running the
stay
risk of everything in your refrigerator being an issue.
Yep.
All right,
brings us
leftovers.
to cookies too,
I
though.
know.
Sorry to slap your
Oh,
hand.
no. Cookies are a great thing to have a conversation about.
because we're talking about salmonella. So cookies, I'm a sucker for cookie dough.
Yeah.
I love to eat it. And the eggs are something that cause a little bit of risk, right? Salmonella is one of them.
Yep.
But the flour is something that can also pose the same risk. Flour, especially nowadays with shipping and how things are being transferred all across the world, there's a little bit more risk, I'd say, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we've had recalls on flour for salmonella, listeria, just some nasty stuff going on.
Yeah.
So if I know kids love to eat the raw cookie dough, or the kids at heart, whatever it is, right? Scraping the bowl, all of that kind of thing. But you really want to be really careful. And if you are deliberately making raw cookie dough, you want to put that flour, I hate to say it, but you want to cook it first.
Yeah.
So that you kill whatever might be in
And
there.
you can just do that on
That's
a cookie
big
sheet.
deal.
Put
Yep.
it on a cookie sheet, stick it in the
Yeah.
oven. It's got to reach
Yep.
that 165 mark
Yep.
as well.
It does.
Which doesn't mean that it's going to have any browning to it. You're not going to cook your flour.
No.
You're just going to make sure those pathogens are killed.
Yeah. It seems weird
It does.
to even have that conversation, but we have so many people getting sick right now. So obviously dealing with the raw eggs, raw flour, obviously allergens is another big conversation with this. I make cookies, as all my friends know. They put in their orders every fall for what they want, but you have to be very, very careful about nuts and different kinds of allergies, gluten, and all of that fun stuff that goes on there. Also, with all the holidays, we always have, and I don't know about you, but I always have some kind of leftovers. So using those leftover mashed potatoes, whether you make a casserole or something like that, making sure they're properly reheated. Cornbread is one of those that I frequently have left over because we always make cornbread, whether I make it for stuffing or whatever. Now what do I do with it? Because everybody's gone and I still have cornbread. Or challah is another one. So
Yeah.
obviously bread pudding is the best thing ever.
Yeah, bread pudding is amazing.
Is so easy, quick to do with whatever kind of bread you have.
Same with croutons. Croutons
Yeah.
are so easy. You could
Making your
slice that
own
up and
croutons.
put it in the oven for a little bit.
Cornbread croutons
So good.
on a beef stew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing
So,
better.
have really look at what you're doing, because cornbread, if I leave this out for 3 or 4 days, I'm going to have some issues with it, right? Because it's not refrigerated and it does tend to get little green spots on it. So it really is trying to figure out how to use some of your leftovers really is a big conversation.
It's very important.
So
Yeah.
there's tons and tons of recipes out there for doing things. One of our favorite things with cornbread is to have it for breakfast.
Yeah, what do you do?
Fry it up, put a fried egg over it, pour a little maple syrup on top of that. I know, it sounds so weird.
No, that sounds
Best
really
thing
good.
ever. So
Bring up some bacon and I'm in.
making food not waste really is that big
That is so
conversation,
important.
whether you dry it or you get it in the freezer or send it home with your college kids so they eat it. Always that's that. And also,
Drying it's a good idea. Even
Yeah.
if you had like extra rolls and a cornbread, you could dry them all out together and make your own breadcrumbs. And those store beautifully.
Yeah, breadcrumbs, or I like to thicken soup with it too.
Yeah.
That's a great way to do something like
bread
that.
pudding.
Yeah, bread pudding's
love
always
bread pudding.
a good option.
Yeah.
So get a little creative with your leftovers, but don't get so creative that they're unsafe.
Yeah.
Making sure everything gets in the refrigerator within that 2-hour mark for your hot food so that it doesn't have that opportunity. The basic rule of thumb is never let the food go above 41 degrees for longer than 4 hours.
Right.
Because those microbes are going to start to grow and your food's not going to be so safe.
What
So-
we've done anymore is we do our own plated meals. That way you don't have the cross-contamination of going up to a buffet of sorts.
Yeah.
You just portioned it all out. You know what leftovers you've got. You know that they've been cooled properly, that they're still
Right.
viable as a leftover option.
And
works
it
pretty
is. Dealing with your own family, keeping the food safe obviously is important, but when you're
Yeah.
dealing with your extended family and you've got the real little ones and the older people, you want to be extra special.
Yeah.
And hauling it, all right? If all the family brought stuff, right, you want to make sure that they are all following the basic rules so
Yeah.
that you know that kind of thing. You don't have some surprise.
Yeah.
Oh, you put peanuts in that? Oh, nobody told me that, right? So just to make sure nobody ends up in the hospital is always a good thing.
Yep. Things to
Yep.
consider are sesame, peanuts, tree nuts, milk, wheat, what else?
Fish, shellfish.
Shellfish.
Yep.
Anybody else? And soy.
You
Yep,
missed the
and
soy. Yep. So those are some of the basic things
Mm-hmm.
that people are allergic to, but obviously other people have different kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things, like my sister-in-law who's allergic to pectin. So that's
Really?
a weird sort of a situation. Yeah.
Oh,
so
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting's a word for it. Yeah. So it really is how to deal with your family. Let's keep them safe, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Jake. My oh my. I think we're ready for the holiday season.
I hope so.
Oh, I hope so too. Let's get the bacon.